everyone, Radio Mike here, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. We are nearly on 1,100 subscribers ever since we hit the big 1K a few weeks ago. It's been still climbing up and up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. All videos on this channel on pop culture, movies, games, TV, music. I am Australia's most lovable nerd. Check out some of my other videos on the screen now if I edit this correctly. And in other news, I also just launched a Patreon, which you can subscribe to, link in bio, but it's patreon.com/RadioMike. For a small donation each month, you can really help me out and help me make content like this that hopefully you like. But today, you guys asked, well, a few people asked, and well, actually I asked, and then people said that they would like this, as you can probably see on screen now. I've decided to do a video that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and this video is, get ready for it, my top 5 episodes of The Simpsons. Let's get into it. Okay, so choosing a top 5 episodes of The Simpsons is actually probably harder than any other show in existence for anyone, I think. And the reason for that is because The Simpsons actually just hit its 32nd season, and there are now actually over 700 episodes of The Simpsons. And 700 of anything is a lot of episodes. Like, imagine having 700 chicken nuggets or something equivalent. And I know most of you are probably thinking, oh, come on, Mike, it can't be that hard. You just kind of get rid of seasons 11 through 32. Surely none of those matter, and it's just The Simpsons golden age that you need to be talking about in this video. And that's all well and good, but even if we go from season 1 to season 10, we're still dealing with a little over 200 episodes here. And 200 of anything is also pretty big. Imagine like 200 chicken nuggets, for example. But seriously, I had to think long and hard about this, and I think there is a nice balance in my top 5 of like episodes that I think are fan favorite episodes, and then maybe a couple that are more me-centric or episodes that specifically spoke to me a bit more. Most of these do sit within the golden age, bar one, which appears a little bit later, but I'd like to justify it here as well. But The Simpsons has been such a huge part of my life. It really helped shape my comedic sensibilities. Well, The Simpsons and The Emperor's New Groove, that Disney film from the 2000s with David Spade and John Goodman, that's a really good movie.
Oh, right. The poison for Cusco. The poison chosen specially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison. Fat poison?
Yes, fat poison.
Got you covered.
I should definitely do a full review of that on this channel sometime. And if you watch all of my videos, you would have seen this video I did a few weeks ago which talks about how I reckon The Simpsons can actually have a line drawn to every single animated sitcom that came after it. I think The Simpsons was so groundbreaking in being a primetime animated sitcom, and so much of where animated comedy and animated television is now can be drawn back to The Simpsons. This show is so influential, which is also why choosing a top 5 is so hard, but I think I've really narrowed it down, and well, I'd like to kick it off with my number 5. Number 5 for me has to be Cape Fear, one of the best Sideshow Bob episodes in the history of The Simpsons, and just an amazing episode that has so many amazing lines and quotes. If you're not familiar with this episode, here are a few of the highlights. The rake joke that is one of the most beloved gags in the history of The Simpsons. Fun fact about this one, this was actually supposed to be 1 or 2 rakes that Sideshow Bob did, but because the episode was running a little bit short, they decided to lengthen the episode a little bit by having Sideshow Bob step on a few more rakes, which created this amazing comedic moment. This is also the episode with the Thompsons, where the Simpsons go into witness protection and become the Thompson family, and this amazing line where Homer is in witness protection and learning for the first time that his new name will be Homer Thompson.
Remember now, your name is Homer Thompson.
I got you.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
I've always loved, I think he's talking to you. And that is just one of the most quotable Simpsons moments of all time. Of course, Kelsey Grammer as Sideshow Bob has become such an amazing part about The Simpsons over the last 30 years.
Oh, I'll stay away from your son, all right. Stay away forever. No! Wait a minute.
That's no good.
The episode is actually named after and based on a film called Cape Fear, in which a murderer named John Cady, I believe, is stalking a family. And the theme from Cape Fear is actually the Sideshow Bob theme. They basically took it as a parody and then just ran with it for the next 30 years as Sideshow Bob's theme. Of course, we get to hear Grammer's amazing singing voice while he sings the HMS Pinafore to Bart on the houseboat, which is another incredible moment in Simpsons history.
What never, no never, what never, hardly ever, he's hardly ever sick at sea.
And there are also some other great movie callbacks and parodies, including Flanders with A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Say your prayers, Simpson. Because the schools can't force you like they should.
This episode is great on all fronts. Comedy, guest voice actors, pop culture references. Cape Fear is just one of those great, memorable Simpsons episodes whose lines and funny moments never really get old. And I'll always remember this as one of my top 5 favourite episodes of The Simpsons.
No, that's German for the Bart. The.
Also, just as a little shout out, and I guess an honourable mention, but another great Sideshow Bob episode from much later after the Golden Age is The Italian Bob, where Sideshow Bob is living out in Italy. I really love that episode, so that's a great one to go and check out.
Vendetta! Vendetta! Vendetta for me, Papa!
On to number 4, and an equally classic episode that I know would be number 1 on a lot of people's lists. This episode is Marge versus the Monorail. First of all, who can fault Phil Hartman's roles in The Simpsons? From Troy McClure to Lionel Hutz, and then in this episode, Lyle Lanley, the villain of this episode. Phil Hartman has always done such an amazing job in all of his roles on The Simpsons.
Name's Lanley. Lyle Lanley.
Another fun fact is that the character Zap Brannigan from Futurama was originally going to be voiced by Phil Hartman before he tragically died. However, Billy West, who currently does that voice, based Zap Brannigan's voice off what he thought Phil Hartman would sound like doing it. I think that's really cool.
You want the rest of the champagne?
No, and it's pronounced champagne.
Oh God, no!
The Monorail episode is just such a classic for so many reasons. Obviously it was written by the great Conan O'Brien in one of his best writing roles on The Simpsons. And that Monorail song that we all know off by heart and love and will sing on repeat until the day that we all die is just one of the best Simpsons songs in history. Up there with Who Needs That Quickie Mart and the Maison Derriere song. I think that Monorail is probably in my top 2 Simpsons songs of all time.
Mono,
So many great moments as well, with Leonard Nimoy being a guest voice actor, playing himself in this.
And let me say, may the Force be with you.
Do you even know who I am?
I think I do. Weren't you one of the little rascals?
And I love how it shows the stupidity of the people of Springfield who just get duped into making this monorail that they don't really need, instead of actually using money that the city has come by to fix genuine problems that Marge is outlining in the episode. People just get sucked in by the song and dance, literally, of Lyle Lanley and make this monorail that essentially does nothing. I think my favourite moment in this episode is the mono means one, rail means rail part, where Lyle Lanley is teaching the intensive 6-week course, I believe, on how to drive a monorail.
So then, mono means one, and rail means rail.
And of course, this amazing exchange between Homer and Marge about Batman.
Homer? Homer?
Yellow.
Homer! There's a man here who thinks he can help you.
Batman?
No, he's a scientist.
Batman's a scientist.
It's not Batman.
Monorail is an amazing episode of The Simpsons. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it right now. One of Phil Hartman's best performances on the show. Great from all characters. Homer is at his best. Marge is at her best. The conflict of the town. The conflict... Marge being that voice of reason character. I love Monorail. This is an amazing episode of The Simpsons. Number 3, it's Homer's Barbershop Quartet. What can I say about this one? I love this episode so much. This is the Beatles parody episode, the Baby on Board episode of The Simpsons, and I think, again, Baby on Board, probably in my top 3 Simpsons songs of all time.
Baby on board, something, something, Burt Ward.
I think this episode really shows how The Simpsons was really able to pinpoint popular culture moments and totally satirize popular culture of the time that the writers were young. The Beatles were obviously one of the biggest bands in the world, and to have Homer essentially be a Beatle as a member of the B-Sharps in this episode is such a great, great parody. I love references to real world things, such as this reference to something that John Lennon actually said in real life.
What'd you do? Screw up like the Beatles and say you were bigger than Jesus?
All the time. It was the title of our second album.
And of course, the final reference to the rooftop performance of the Beatles.
And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Boom, boom, boom. Baby on board.
Chief Wiggum coming back to audition for the B-Sharps and singing a Dr. Dolittle song. Absolutely hilarious.
If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals.
Good Lord. Dr. Dolittle is Chief Wiggum.
This bird's gonna fly.
And I think one of my favourite moments in this episode is Apu being renamed to Apu de Beaumarchais? Apu de Beaumarchais? Or something like that. As I said, I love this episode because it really showcases how The Simpsons could handle pop culture satire and parody. There are so many direct references to the Beatles' career, and it really follows their trajectory. And of course, the hilarious guest appearance of George Harrison, one of the original Beatles, in this episode, only to be essentially completely ignored by Homer. This one is just amazing on so many levels, and I love that The Simpsons were able to tackle something as big as the Beatles in such an amazing and hilarious way.
Hello, Homer. I'm George Harrison.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Where did you get that brownie?
Over there, there's a big pile of them.
Number 2, and this could be the most controversial episode on the list, but I will not back down on this. I absolutely will not relent on how good this episode is, and it is the final episode of Season 11, Behind the Laughter. If you don't remember this episode was the one where it was a parody of Behind the Music, and essentially was a mockumentary format in which The Simpsons were actors that were playing characters in the show The Simpsons.
I want to set the record straight. I thought the cop was a prostitute.
This is probably, in my opinion, and I'm happy for people to disagree with this, but I actually think that there is no greater episode of The Simpsons in terms of jokes per minute. I believe that essentially every single line in this episode is a very well written joke. There are almost no gaps, the tempo never breaks, everything is incredibly funny in this episode. The whole thing is a huge send-up of celebrity culture and television culture and TV series and etc. And again, every character is at their best.
With the family in disarray, episodes increasingly resorted to gimmicky premises and nonsensical plots.
I'm an imposter. That man is the real Seymour Skinner.
I love the concept of the Simpsons family moving into MC Hammer's home and the anonymous tipster who realizes that the Simpsons aren't paying their taxes, and it's obviously Apu. But more generally, just the fact that this episode was so experimental, which is probably why it was so controversial when it first aired.
Next week on Behind the Laughter, Huckleberry Hound.
I was so gay, but I couldn't tell anyone.
But it works so well for me. I think this episode is everything that an experimental non-canon, I guess, as loosely as the canon term can be used with The Simpsons. I think this is how an experimental episode of The Simpsons could be amazing. And shifting the format a little bit and doing something a little bit wacky and unexpected can work so well.
Nobody told us how tough it is to raise kids. They almost drove me to fortified wine.
Then we figured out we could park them in front of the TV. And that's how I was raised, and I turned out TV.
I love this episode, and I think more generally, I've always loved the mockumentary genre, which actually raises a lot of questions because I have never seen The Office, and everyone tells me that I would love The Office. But I feel like as a mockumentary format, this is great, and I would have loved to see more of this in The Simpsons. More stuff like fake documentaries on the series and the characters in The Simpsons being actors portraying characters in a television show. So funny. I love this episode. Jokes everywhere, and so many in-references to The Simpsons itself. So many references to the show's past and different moments in the show. And it's just, I think this episode is just a fan's dream episode of The Simpsons, and I love it so much. Please go and watch this episode again if you don't like it. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Okay, number 1, and I'm sure you are thinking, but no, it is not You Only Move Twice, the Hank Scorpio episode. I'm sorry if that disappoints you. I do like that episode, but it's not in my top 5. It might be in my top 10, and I will do a second top 5 if enough people want that. But my number 1 episode of The Simpsons, please hear me out, is, without a doubt, A Milhouse Divided. A Milhouse Divided is the episode where Milhouse's parents get a divorce at the Simpsons dinner party. And why do I love this episode so much? Okay, Kirk Van Houten to me is one of the Simpsons' greatest secondary and recurring characters. Just his general patheticness and just stupidity throughout this series. His voice, which I believe is Hank Azaria, is such a great adaptation of like an adult Milhouse.
I sleep in a racing car. Do you?
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there are a few reasons why I like this episode so much. I actually believe that the scene in this episode in which Kirk draws dignity on the Pictionary whiteboard or chalkboard or whatever it is probably one of the best written and most absurd scenes in the entirety of The Simpsons.
It's dignity! Gah! Don't you even know dignity when you see it?
Something about this scene I just thought was incredibly genius comedic writing, where you just see so much tension between Kirk and Luann. You see Marge feeling very uncomfortable about them arguing, but just so many of the quotes in this are my favourite Simpsons quotes of all time. It's dignity! Don't you even know dignity when you see it? And of course, one of my personal favourites, do you want me to show it to the cat and have the cat tell you what it is? 'Cause the cat's gonna get it. That is just an amazing line, and I watch this scene on repeat and think about it regularly. I think I would have loved to have been in the room when this was being written, because it's so absurd. Like, where did these ideas come from? Where did someone think that Kirk would draw dignity on the board, and why did they decide it would be that shape? Like, I would love to see the writers in a room deciding that that would be the shape, or whoever decided that. I just think all of these things together work so well in this episode. I love Kirk, and I especially love Can I Borrow a Feeling, my number 1 Simpsons song of all time.
Can I borrow a feeling? Can I borrow a feeling? That's your picture on the front.
Go ahead, Homer, laugh at me.
I already did.
There is something just so pathetically dim-witted about this song. Can I borrow a feeling? Could you lend me a jar of love? I just think whoever wrote that song is a genius in capturing like a terrible 80s sounding love song that's really cheesy and bad. Like, Can I Borrow a Feeling? And he sings it with such vindication. I just think there is so much genius in the lyrics of that song and the way that Kirk performs it, and everything just works so well with Kirk's character. This is one of the best written episodes of The Simpsons of all time. There are other great ones out there, but if you go and watch the intricacies, particularly in that Pictionary scene, there is so much going on there, and it is so well-rounded, and it is just a great episode of television. Okay guys, those are my top 5 episodes of The Simpsons. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe, check out some of my other videos that are on the screen right now, and thumbs this video up, and like I said, The Simpsons has been a huge show for me, so I'm keen to do more content talking about some of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons, or even doing like commentaries on Simpsons episodes or something like that. I think that could be really fun. For now, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my Patreon, radiomike.com.au is my website, and I will see you next time. Catch you later.
But I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string.